She replaced her cousin at the airport pickup and picked up a Millionaire CEO by mistake. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us get back to our main character. The afternoon sun poured through the glass walls of JFK Airport, turning everything gold. The air buzzed with the sound of rolling suitcases, boarding announcements, and the quiet chaos of arrivals. Emma Carter stood near the exit gate, clutching a white card that read, Daniel Wells Investor Group. Her palms were slightly sweaty. She was not supposed to be here. Her cousin had called that morning sick with the flu, begging Emma to cover this one pickup. It is easy, she had said. Just find the man, drive him to the hotel, and you will get $60. $60 meant groceries for the week, or maybe gas for her old Honda. Emma adjusted the sign, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. She had borrowed her cousin's beige trench coat, trying to look more professional, though her shoes still squeaked from years of use. Her reflection in the window showed a girl trying to belong in a world that moved too fast for her. A man's voice echoed nearby, deep and calm. She looked up. A tall man in a dark suit walked toward her, his steps measured, his expression unreadable. The late sunlight caught the edges of his hair, and for a moment, he looked like he had stepped out of a different life, one where people never worried about bills or broken cars. Emma glanced down at the sign again, then back at him. It had to be him. The timing, the confidence, everything matched what her cousin described. She took a nervous breath, forcing a smile. "Mr. Wells?" she asked, her voice bright but unsure. The man paused. His eyes met hers, curious, slightly amused, but not correcting her. "Yes," he said simply, after a short silence. His voice carried that quiet authority of someone used to being obeyed. Relief rushed through her chest. "Perfect. I am Emma, your driver today. Welcome to New York." She gestured toward the parking lot, grabbing his suitcase before he could protest. He followed, surprised by her energy. As they stepped into the crisp air outside, she tried to make conversation. "Long flight?" "About 5 hours," he said. "Not too bad." "Well, good thing the weather behaved today," she laughed, awkwardly filling the silence. "Yesterday the rain was insane. My cousin's windshield wipers almost flew off." "What?" He smiled faintly, and for a second, the distance between their worlds felt smaller. He did not tell her that his name was not Daniel Wells. He did not tell her that he was Ryan Hale, CEO of Hale Tech Capital, here for a confidential investment deal. Something in her sincerity, her effort to be kind in a world that rarely was, made him curious. He slid his phone back into his pocket and decided, just this once, to play along. As Emma loaded his luggage into the trunk, she caught her breath and whispered to herself, "Okay, Emma, do not mess this up." Then she looked up and smiled again, the kind of smile that could accidentally change someone's life forever. And as the car door closed, neither of them knew that this wrong pickup was about to become the best mistake they would ever make. The city lights flickered to life as Emma's small sedan merged into the traffic, carrying her unexpected passenger through the evening rush. The air inside the car smelled faintly of lemon air freshener and wildflowers from her part-time job at the flower shop. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Ryan Hale watched the city blur by through the window. From the outside, he looked calm, collected, but inside he was amused by the absurdity of the situation. He had planned to take a private car to his meeting downtown. Instead, he had been picked up by a stranger who thought he was someone else, and yet, he found himself not correcting her. Emma tapped the steering wheel nervously, trying to fill the silence. "So, Mr. Wells, first time in New York?" He glanced at her, suppressing a smile. "Not quite, but it has been a while." "Oh, lucky you," she said with a sigh. "I have lived here my whole life, and somehow I am still late everywhere." She laughed softly at her own joke. Ryan studied her reflection in the side window. There was nothing rehearsed about her. She spoke like every word was unfiltered, every thought honest. It was something he rarely saw in his world of business deals and perfect smiles. At a red light, Emma leaned forward, pointing out the skyline. "See that building with the green lights? I used to walk past it every morning on my way to work. I told myself one day I would have an office up there. Not to be rich or anything, just to see the city from the top for once." Her words hung in the air. He looked at her, then at the tower glowing in the distance. "You still could," he said quietly. Emma smiled, not realizing how serious he was. Maybe. But for now, I am happy making flower deliveries and picking up mysterious investors at the airport. He chuckled. Mysterious, huh? Well, you do look like someone who keeps a lot of secrets, she teased. Ryan turned his gaze back to the window, hiding a small grin. She was not wrong. When they reached the hotel, Emma parked and hurried to open the trunk. Ryan followed, watching her wrestle with his luggage that looked far too heavy for her frame. I can take it from here, he offered. But she shook her head. No, it is part of the job. Full service. She lifted the suitcase with both hands, nearly losing her balance. He stepped forward, steadying it easily with one hand. Their eyes met for a second longer than they should have. Thank you, she murmured. Thank you, he replied, his tone sincere. For the ride. Before she could respond, a sleek black car pulled up beside them. A man in a suit stepped out, holding a clipboard. Mr. Hale, we have been looking for you, he said briskly. The meeting downtown was delayed by 30 minutes. Emma blinked. Mr. Hale? She repeated softly, confused. Ryan's jaw tightened. He looked between the driver, the clipboard, and Emma's puzzled face. The moment stretched like glass ready to break. But then, he smiled calmly. Tell them I will handle it tomorrow, he said to his assistant. The man hesitated, then nodded, and left. Ryan turned back to Emma, his voice steady. It is a long story, but thank you again, Miss Carter. He reached into his jacket, took out a business card, and handed it to her. In case you ever need anything, or if you decide to see that skyline from the top. She looked at the card, the elegant gold lettering almost glowing under the hotel lights. Ryan Hale, Hale Tech Capital. Her stomach flipped. You are, yes, he said gently. And you are one of the few people today who treated me like a person, not a position. Emma did not know what to say. Her mind spun between embarrassment and disbelief. I thought you were Daniel Wells. He smiled, his eyes kind. I know, but maybe I liked being someone else for a little while. For a moment, the noise of the city faded. There was only the hum of traffic and the quiet rhythm of two strangers caught between mistake and destiny. He lifted his suitcase and walked toward the revolving doors. Emma stood frozen by her car, the business card still warm in her hand. The words Hale Tech Capital shimmered under the streetlights. She whispered to herself, what just happened? When she finally drove away, her heart was still racing. The night wind blew through the cracked window, carrying the faint scent of his cologne. She laughed softly, shaking her head. Only me, she said under her breath. Only I could pick up the wrong guy and somehow make it weirder. But beneath the laughter, something else lingered, an unfamiliar spark, a curiosity that refused to fade. Across town, in a penthouse overlooking the skyline, Ryan Hale set down the small paper flower she had given him on his desk. The delicate folds caught the city light. For the first time in a long while, the powerful CEO smiled not because of success, but because of a stranger who had made him feel ordinary, if only for an hour. And somewhere in Queens, a girl who had spent her whole life looking up at tall buildings stared at that same skyline and wondered if maybe, just maybe, her life was finally about to change. The next morning, the city woke under a pale blue sky, but Emma barely noticed it. She sat at the small kitchen table of her apartment, staring at the business card resting beside her cup of instant coffee. The gold letters caught the morning light. Ryan Hale, Hale Tech Capital. Her mother, Margaret, shuffled into the kitchen in her robe. You have been staring at that card for 10 minutes. Did it propose to you or something? She teased gently. Emma blinked out of her thoughts and smiled faintly. I met him yesterday. Well, kind of by accident. I was supposed to pick up someone named Daniel Wells, but I picked up this guy instead. Turns out he is some billionaire CEO. Her mother's eyebrows lifted. A billionaire? And he gave you his card? Emma shrugged, sipping her coffee. I think he was just being polite. But inside, something stirred. She remembered his calm tone, the way he had smiled when she talked about her dream garden. She had told him things she rarely said aloud. Maybe it was because he felt like a stranger. Maybe it was because she thought she would never see him again. On her way to the flower shop, she tucked the card into her wallet, telling herself it meant nothing. Yet every time she opened it to pay for something, her eyes found his name again. That afternoon, the shop owner, Mrs. Lopez, handed Emma a pile of orders. These are for the corporate accounts, she said. Deliver them carefully. One of them is to Hail Tech Tower. Emma froze. Hail Tech Tower? Mrs. Lopez nodded. Yes, the big one on Madison Avenue. They ordered flowers for their new Green Lab event tomorrow. Fancy people with fancy money. Try not to faint if you see someone famous. Emma laughed nervously, but her heart was already pounding. By noon, she stood in the sleek marble lobby of Hail Tech Tower, clutching 2 bouquets wrapped in silver paper. The air smelled of espresso and new furniture. Everything around her gleamed. She felt wildly out of place in her simple floral apron. At the reception desk, a woman with a perfect bun smiled professionally. Delivery for Green Lab? Yes, Emma said, clearing her throat. For Mr. Hale's office. Go. Please wait a moment, the receptionist replied, picking up the phone. As Emma waited, she glanced around. The walls were filled with vertical gardens, lush green vines trailing down the glass panels. It was beautiful, exactly the kind of living design she had dreamed of creating. Miss Carter? A voice said behind her. She turned. Ryan stood there. No suit jacket this time, just a crisp white shirt and sleeves rolled to his elbows. He looked different, almost relaxed. Mr. Hale, she said quickly, almost dropping the flowers. I did not know you would be here. It is my office, he said with a smile. But I am glad you came. He motioned for her to follow him to the elevator. The silence inside felt thicker than the glass walls surrounding them. Emma stared at the glowing floor numbers. I promise this is not stalking. I really did not know this was your company's order. He chuckled. Relax. I believe you. I am just surprised you actually delivered flowers yourself. I like doing it, she said. Flowers make people's days better. The elevator doors opened to a stunning rooftop garden, in progress half-finished wooden decks, sunlight spilling through tall glass panes, workers arranging planters. This is the Green Lab, Ryan said. We are trying to create a space that feels alive in the middle of the city. Emma's eyes widened. It is beautiful. You mentioned something yesterday, he said, about a community garden. I was wondering if you would help us design this one. We could use someone with your perspective. Her mouth fell open slightly. You want me to work here? Not full-time, he said with a shrug. Just as a consultant. Tell us what feels human, not corporate. For a moment, she forgot to breathe. The skyline stretched behind him, the city shimmering like a dream she had only dared to imagine. I do not have a degree, she said softly. I never finished college. Good. He smiled. Good. Then you will not tell me why something cannot be done. Emma laughed, the sound breaking the tension. You are serious, aren't you? Completely, he said. He handed her a visitor badge. Come tomorrow morning. Bring your ideas, not your resume. That evening, Emma sat by her small window, sketchbook open, pencil moving faster than her thoughts. She drew pathways, benches, fountains, made of recycled stone pieces of her dream coming alive on paper. She did not realize she was smiling until her mother noticed. You look happy, Margaret said. Emma nodded slowly. I think something good might actually happen, Mom. Across town, Ryan looked out over the city from his penthouse. On his desk sat the paper flower she had made. It was simple, imperfect, yet somehow more beautiful than any art in his home. He turned it between his fingers, thinking of her voice, her honesty, her dream of a place that belonged to everyone. For the first time in years, he felt something real stirring in his chest. He told himself it was curiosity, maybe inspiration, but deep down, he knew it was something else. As the city lights reflected in the glass, he whispered to himself, maybe some mistakes are meant to stay. The next morning came with soft sunlight spilling across Emma's tiny kitchen table. Her sketchbook lay open beside an untouched bowl of cereal. She had been up half the night, redrawing every detail of the rooftop garden, too nervous and excited to sleep. When her mother peeked into the room, she smiled knowingly. You have that look, she said. The one you get before something big happens. Emma exhaled and nodded. I have to go to Hale Tech today. Mr. Hale Ryan, he wants me to show my ideas for their rooftop project. Margaret raised an eyebrow. The same billionaire who got into your car by mistake? The same one, Emma replied with a sheepish grin. It still sounds crazy when I say it out loud. By the time Emma reached Hale Tech Tower, her hands were shaking slightly. The lobby felt just as intimidating as before, but this time, she walked with purpose. Her visitor badge hung from her neck, her sketchbook clutched tightly in her hands. Upstairs, Ryan was already waiting in the rooftop space. He was dressed casually again, standing near a row of half-built planters. "Good morning," he greeted, his voice calm. "You made it." "I almost did not," she admitted, laughing nervously. "I missed the subway twice. But I figured that is not a great excuse to skip a meeting with the CEO." He smiled. "I have heard worse. Come on, show me what you have got." Emma opened her sketchbook, her fingers brushing the pencil lines she had drawn by lamplight. "Okay, so I thought maybe we could use recycled stone for the benches, and this wall here could be covered with climbing plants, ivy or morning glory, something that grows wild, not just looks expensive." Ryan listened, genuinely listening as she spoke. She moved her hands when she talked, her words tumbling out faster the more comfortable she became. He noticed how her eyes lit up when she described the small details, the bird bath, the open seating for employees, the scent of jasmine in spring. "You think about people," he said quietly when she finished. "Isn't that the point?" she asked. "Places like this are built for humans, not for photographs." He looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. "You are right. Most designers forget that." Quote, "They spent hours walking through the unfinished rooftop, discussing ideas, laughing at the absurd cost of city plants. At one point, she stopped to tie her hair back, sunlight catching the loose strands around her face. Ryan found himself staring longer than he should have. Something about her simplicity, her unfiltered joy, cut through the walls he had built for years. At noon, he ordered lunch for both of them. They sat on the edge of the deck, legs dangling above the glass facade. Emma bit into her sandwich and chuckled. "I cannot believe this is real. Yesterday I was delivering flowers, and today I am consulting for a billionaire." "Do not remind me," he said with a laugh. "I am still trying to believe it myself." For a few minutes they just sat in silence, watching the wind move through the half-built garden. It was peaceful, almost intimate. Then Ryan's phone buzzed. His expression shifted slightly as he glanced at the screen messages from his board of directors. Urgent and cold, Emma noticed. "You should get that," she said softly. He shook his head. "It can wait." After lunch, Emma packed her sketchbook. "I will make some adjustments tonight," she said. "You will have a full plan by morning." Ryan nodded but hesitated before speaking. "Emma, would you join me tomorrow night? We are hosting a small event to preview the Green Lab. It is not official, just a soft opening. I would like you to see what your ideas look like in real life." Her eyes widened. "Me? At a Hailtech event? I do not even own a dress fancy enough for that." "Then borrow one," he said lightly. "It would mean a lot to have you there." When she returned home that evening, her mother was waiting on the couch. "You have that glow again," Margaret teased. "Tell me everything." Emma tried to play it down, but her smile betrayed her. "He actually listened to me, Mom. Like really listened. And he invited me to some company event tomorrow." Margaret's eyes twinkled. "A fancy one?" "The fanciest," Emma said with a laugh. "I'm going to need to raid your closet." That night, Emma spread her sketches across the kitchen table again, erasing, adjusting, refining every detail. She added a small corner garden labeled Open Hands, a place for employees to plant something of their own. It was a small idea, but it felt important, a symbol of connection. Across town, Ryan sat in his office, scrolling through the updated project notes his team had sent him. Every suggestion Emma made had been added to the final blueprint. For the first time in months, he looked forward to tomorrow not as another business milestone, but as something personal. He picked up the paper flower from his desk again, now slightly bent from being handled too often. He set it beside the rooftop plans and smiled. "She said flowers make people's days better," he murmured. "Maybe she is right." Outside, the city glowed like 1,000 stories unfolding at once. Somewhere beneath those lights, one of them had just begun to change. The next evening, the rooftop of Hailtech Tower shimmered beneath strings of golden lights. The preview event for the Green Lab was smaller than expected, just investors, staff, and a handful of guests, but it felt like another world to Emma. She stood at the edge of the terrace in a simple navy dress borrowed from her mother. Her shoes pinched slightly, but she could not stop smiling. Around her, laughter and clinking glasses mixed with the soft hum of music. For the first time, she was not delivering flowers to the party, she was part of it. Ryan spotted her from across the room. For a moment, he simply watched as she gazed at the skyline. She looked nothing like the polished businesswomen he usually met, yet somehow she belonged here more than anyone. When he approached, Emma turned and smiled nervously. "I still cannot believe you invited me," she said. "You earned it," he replied. "Look around. Every plant here came from your sketches. Gogol. She followed his gaze and saw the climbing vines curling up the glass walls, the recycled benches she had drawn now standing proudly beneath the lights. It is beautiful, she whispered. You really made it happen. No, he said softly. You did. A few guests nearby approached Ryan, greeting him with formal smiles. Emma stepped aside, feeling suddenly out of place again. The way people spoke to him, measured, deferential, was a reminder of who he really was. She picked up a glass of sparkling water, trying to fade into the background. After the investors moved away, Ryan returned to her side. You look like you are plotting an escape, he teased. I was considering it, she admitted. Everyone here speaks in numbers and contracts. I do not know their language. Then speak yours, he said. Talk about the flowers, the air, the color of the sky. That is the language people actually remember. Good. She smiled, his words easing the tension in her chest. For a moment, everything felt light again. But the calm did not last. Toward the end of the evening, a man in a tailored suit approached with a half-smile that did not reach his eyes. Ryan, he said smoothly, so this is your new consultant? Quite a change from your usual crowd. Emma froze, unsure how to respond. Ryan's expression tightened, but he kept his composure. Emma, this is Jonathan Pierce, one of our board members, Claude. Jonathan offered a handshake. A florist, right? How refreshing. I suppose this is your idea of innovation? Emma flushed, lowering her eyes. Before she could say anything, Ryan stepped closer. Actually, yes, he said evenly. Emma's ideas made this entire project possible. Maybe that is what this company has been missing, someone who still sees life as more than profit. Jonathan's smirk faltered. He nodded stiffly and walked away. Emma turned to Ryan, her voice barely a whisper. You did not have to do that. Yes, I did, he said. You earned your place here. The music softened as the crowd thinned. They moved to the edge of the terrace, the city lights stretching endlessly below them. A gentle breeze carried the scent of fresh ivy. I used to think, Emma said quietly, that people like you lived in a different world. But maybe it is not so different after all. Ryan looked at her, his voice low. It can be lonely at the top. Sometimes I forget what it feels like to just talk to someone without a purpose. She met his eyes. You make it sound like I am doing you a favor. Maybe you are, he said, smiling faintly. For a while, neither of them spoke. The silence was not uncomfortable, it was full of meaning neither dared to name. When Emma finally left that night, Ryan walked her to the elevator. Thank you for coming, he said, and for reminding me why we built this in the first place. She smiled softly. Thank you for letting me see it. As the elevator doors closed, he watched her reflection disappear behind the glass, the faintest smile still lingering on his face. That night, back in her small apartment, Emma placed the event badge on her nightstand beside the sketchbook. She traced the printed logo with her fingertip and whispered to herself, maybe mistakes do not always ruin everything. Across town, Ryan stood on his rooftop, looking out at the same city skyline she had admired hours earlier. The paper flowers still sat on his desk behind him, catching the light from the window. He thought about the girl who had treated him like anyone else and wondered when a mistake had started to feel like destiny. The following week passed in a blur of work and wonder. Emma's designs were now the heart of the Green Lab project, and Ryan insisted she be part of every planning meeting. She arrived early each morning, notebook in hand, never quite believing she belonged there but determined to prove she did. On Thursday evening, after the rest of the team had gone home, Ryan found her still working on the rooftop. She was kneeling beside a planter, dirt on her hands, fixing one of the irrigation lines. The city skyline glowed behind her like a painting. You know, he said, leaning against the glass railing, most consultants do not actually dig in the soil. Cloak. Emma looked up and grinned. Then most consultants are missing the fun part. She wiped her hands on her jeans and stood. Besides, I wanted to see how it feels when everything finally comes together. He smiled, watching her with quiet admiration. You have changed this place, Emma. The team is lighter, happier. Even I catch myself smiling at work, and that used to be impossible. You make it sound like I did magic, she said softly. Maybe you did, he replied. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The air was cool, filled with the scent of new flowers and rain. Then Ryan turned to her, his voice lower. Can I ask you something? Sure. Why do you care so much about helping people who will never know your name? Emma looked at him for a long moment before answering. Because I grew up watching my mom work 2 jobs to keep us afloat. She never asked for credit. She just wanted to make things a little better than she found them. I guess I inherited that." Ryan nodded slowly. "My mother was the same, but after she passed, I buried myself in work. I built this company to honor her, but somewhere along the way, I forgot why I started." His voice faltered, and Emma felt a pang of empathy. "Ryan," he looked at her then, and for the first time, she saw something fragile behind his calm composure, a man who carried the weight of success like a shield. "You know," she said gently, "your mother would be proud. You built something that gives people a chance to grow, literally." Her words drew a quiet laugh from him. "Maybe you are right. Maybe I just needed someone to remind me." The evening stretched into stillness. They walked along the garden path, the city glowing beneath them. At the far corner, a single light flickered above the small plaque that read, "Open Hands," the name Emma had chosen for the employee garden. Ryan stopped, glancing at her. "You named this section after your sketch, did you not?" She nodded. It felt right. Open hands build. They give. They forgive. He smiled, repeating the words softly. They forgive. Then, after a pause, he added, "I have not done that in a long time." Emma met his gaze, her voice quiet but steady. "Then start with yourself." Something shifted between them in that moment. The air felt charged, not with tension, but with understanding. He stepped closer, brushing a strand of hair from her face, his hand trembling slightly. But before he could say anything more, her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out and frowned. "I am sorry, I need to take this." It was Mrs. Lopez from the flower shop. The order system had crashed, and she needed help first thing in the morning. When Emma turned back, Ryan was smiling faintly. "Go, the world needs its flowers." "And its gardens," she replied. As she left, he looked out over the city once more. The rooftop was silent, except for the whisper of wind through the ivy. In that stillness, Ryan realized something he had not felt in years. For the first time, he was not thinking about contracts or profits. He was thinking about Emma, about kindness, about second chances, about what it meant to be seen as human again. Down on the street, Emma looked up at the tower one last time before heading home. She could still see the soft glow from the rooftop, like a heartbeat in the sky. And in her chest, something warm and unfamiliar began to grow. The next morning, the world seemed brighter for Emma. She arrived at the flower shop early, humming to herself as she helped Mrs. Lopez fix the broken order system. Every time her phone buzzed, her heart skipped, half expecting a message from Ryan. But it never came. She told herself he was busy after all. He was a CEO, but a quiet unease began to creep in. By afternoon, the local news was playing on the small TV behind the counter. Mrs. Lopez turned up the volume. "Isn't that your fancy project?" she asked. The screen showed Hailtech Tower with reporters swarming outside. The headline read, "Hailtech accused of misusing charity funds." Emma froze. "What? That cannot be right." Quote. She watched as cameras flashed around Ryan, who stood calm but pale, surrounded by microphones. The news anchor continued. An anonymous source within Hailtech leaked documents suggesting that corporate donations meant for community gardens were redirected to private investors. The CEO, Ryan Hale, has yet to comment. Her stomach twisted. The words felt unreal. That rooftop garden, the one she helped design, was part of those donations. People would think it was all fake, a cover-up. She grabbed her phone, dialing Ryan's number, but it went straight to voicemail. She tried again. Nothing. That evening, unable to stay still, she took the subway downtown and walked toward Hailtech Tower. Security guards stood at the entrance, turning people away. "I need to see Ryan Hale," she said, her voice trembling. "I am sorry, miss," one of them replied. "No visitors tonight." Emma pressed her lips together, fighting frustration. "Just tell him Emma Carter was here." Clo. Inside the building, Ryan sat in his office, staring at the television as the accusations played on loop. He had spent the last hour in crisis meetings, but nothing seemed to help. The leak had come from within his own team. Investors were panicking, and the board was demanding a statement. When his assistant handed him a note, Emma Carter stopped by his chest tightened. He wanted to call her, to explain everything, but he knew the press was watching. Anything he said could make things worse. The next day, Emma finally saw him, not at the rooftop, but on live television. He stood at a podium, his expression controlled but weary. "Every dollar meant for the Green Lab project has been accounted for," he said. "We will open all our financial records to investigators. Transparency is the foundation of this company. But when reporters shouted questions about her name, who is Emma Carter, did she benefit from the misuse of funds, his eyes flickered for the first time. He did not answer. He simply said, "No further comments," and walked away. Emma turned off the TV, her chest aching. He had protected her name by saying nothing, but to the world, silence looked like guilt. She felt a rush of anger and heartbreak. "Why did you not tell me the truth?" she whispered to the empty room. That night she went to the rooftop one last time. The place was deserted, the lights dimmed, the flowers beginning to wilt without care. She touched one of the vines she had planted and felt tears sting her eyes. She whispered softly, "You said this place was about life, not profit. I believed you." Behind her, the elevator doors opened quietly. Ryan stepped out, his face drawn, his tie loosened. "Emma," he said. She turned, her voice low but sharp. "Is it true? Did you use the garden for publicity?" "No," he said firmly. "The funds were real. The leak was planted to damage me, but I could not drag you into this mess." Quote, "You already did," she said. "I trusted you, Ryan, and now everything we built feels like another business strategy." He took a step closer, but she backed away. "Please," he said quietly. "You have to believe me." "I want to," she whispered, "but I do not know how anymore." She turned and walked toward the elevator, her reflection vanishing in the glass doors. Ryan stood alone on the rooftop, surrounded by the fading scent of flowers, realizing that sometimes the hardest part of success is watching the only person who ever saw your soul walk away. 2 weeks passed, and winter settled quietly over New York. The rooftop garden that had once glowed with life now stood cold and empty. The investigation into Hailtech dominated every news channel. Emma had stopped watching after the first few days. She told herself she was done with gardens, done with the mess that came from believing in people out of her league. But every night, she found herself staring at the little paper flower sitting on her windowsill, the one Ryan had left in her sketchbook before everything fell apart. Then, one morning, a letter arrived. It was handwritten on cream paper, no logo, no return address. Just 5 words on the envelope. "Please come see for yourself." Her curiosity won. That afternoon, she followed the address printed inside to a quiet community center in Brooklyn. When she stepped inside, she froze. The walls were covered in drawings from local kids, and in the center of the room stood a sign that read, "The Garden of Paper, a Hale Foundation project." Volunteers moved through rows of indoor planters, small herbs, flowers, and fruit trees growing under warm lights. Children laughed as they painted recycled pots. It was beautiful, alive, real. A woman noticed Emma standing at the doorway. "Are you Emma Carter?" she asked with a smile. "Mr. Hale said you might come." Before Emma could respond, she saw him across the room. Ryan was in jeans and a gray sweater, kneeling beside a group of kids, helping them plant mint leaves. He looked different, tired but lighter somehow, as if he had finally stopped fighting the world and started rebuilding it instead. When he noticed her, he stood, wiping his hands on a rag. "You came," he said softly. "I almost did not," she admitted. "I did not know what to believe." "I know," he said, his voice calm. "The board cleared me last week. The funds were real. Someone tried to sabotage the project because we refused to cut our charity programs. I lost a few investors, but I kept the truth." She looked around the greenhouse-like space, at the families planting together, at the laughter echoing off the walls. "You built this?" "We built this," he corrected gently. "I took your sketches, the ones you left on my desk, and made them the blueprint. It is your vision, Emma. I just gave it a home." Her throat tightened as she walked among the planters. Each had a small label with a name, handwritten by the children. In the corner stood a sculpture of folded paper flowers, the same kind she had made the day they met. "You remembered?" she whispered. "I never forgot," he said. "I thought if I could show you that this was real, that what we created was never about money, you might believe me again." She turned to him, tears welling in her eyes. "You did not have to do all this." "Yes, I did," he replied. "Because you were the one who taught me that good things only grow when we care enough to try again." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then, slowly, she reached out and took his hand. It was warm, familiar, steady. Outside, snow began to fall softly against the windows, blanketing the city in white. Inside, surrounded by the scent of mint and soil, Emma finally smiled. "Maybe," she said quietly, "some mistakes are worth repeating. Ryan smiled back, his voice barely above a whisper. Only the ones that lead me to you. Spring returned to the city, soft and green, and with it came the grand reopening of the Hailtech rooftop garden. The space that had once been empty now overflowed with color roses, ivy, lavender, and the gentle hum of bees drifting through the air. A small plaque at the entrance read, "The Garden of Paper," in celebration of second chances. Emma stood near the fountain, watching the guests arrive, her heart light for the first time in months. She wore a simple white dress, her hair pinned back with a small paper flower. Reporters moved through the crowd, but for once, there were no questions about scandals or money, only about growth, hope, and how beauty could come from broken things. Ryan stepped onto the platform, looking out over the sea of faces. His voice was steady as he spoke. A few months ago, this place was only an idea on paper. But it took someone who believed in people more than profit to make it real. This garden belongs to all of us, and to one person in particular, who reminded me that mistakes can sometimes be the most beautiful beginnings. As he turned toward Emma, the crowd began to clap. He walked down from the platform, stopping in front of her. She smiled shyly, whispering, "You did not tell me you were going to say that." He smiled back. "Some things are better unscripted." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. The moment he opened it, Emma's breath caught. Inside was a silver ring, simple yet elegant, shaped like a delicate vine curling around a paper flower. "Emma Carter," he said softly, his voice trembling just enough to sound real. "You once gave me a paper flower when I had forgotten what kindness looked like. You taught me that love is not about perfection, it is about showing up, even after we fail. Will you let me show up for you every day for the rest of my life?" For a heartbeat, the rooftop went silent except for the wind. Emma's eyes glistened as she whispered, "Yes, 1,000 times yes." The crowd erupted in applause. Ryan slipped the ring onto her finger, then pulled her into an embrace. The fountain behind them shimmered in the afternoon light, and petals from the nearby trees drifted through the air like confetti. Later that evening, as the event ended and the guests began to leave, Emma and Ryan stayed behind on the terrace. The city lights sparkled below, the same view they had once admired as strangers. Emma leaned against him, her voice quiet but full of wonder. "It is strange, isn't it? One mistake started all of this." Ryan chuckled softly. "The best mistake I ever made." She laughed, turning to look at him. "So where do we go from here?" "Anywhere," he said, taking her hand. "As long as we go together." Quote, "The camera would have pulled back then. If this were a movie showing the rooftop glowing against the skyline, two people standing in a garden that had once been only a sketch and a dream. But in reality, it was simpler than that. Just two hearts that had finally found their way home." And as the screen faded to black, Ryan's voice would linger, gentle and true. "Sometimes, love does not come from getting everything right. Sometimes, it begins with one beautiful mistake."